Welcome to our Top Draft Preview Show. I'm Adam Shine, joined as always by my friends Kyle Long, Amy Trask, Brock Farine, Jonathan Jones. They still might be partying in the city of brotherly love, but the 2025 NFL season officially gets underway tomorrow night, Kyle.
There's so much to look forward to. Obviously, the draft provides so many new opportunities for teams looking to maybe reinvent themselves or teams trying to stay at the top. I think about the Kansas City Chiefs, how they're going to retool on their offensive line. But one thing I know about this draft, there are great players at the top of the draft, but it's not a top-heavy draft. There's talent throughout. It's a definite seller's market, and what I mean by that, a lot of moves are probably going to be made, people moving back, tremendous value throughout in this draft.
Last year was the second highest rushing season for the NFL as a whole, and the top 6 rushing teams all made the playoffs. It was the year of the running back. What are the repercussions for that? This will be the year of the defensive line. What were the 2 biggest storylines in the playoffs? The Rams defensive line and the Eagles defensive line. It's a copycat league. You want to be like them. You want to pass rush like them. And you know offenses want to run downhill. So many defensive linemen coming off the board this weekend.
Kyle and Brock, you're, of course, absolutely right. Scouts, trainers, medical personnel, they are all focused on every player available in the draft. What's not as obvious to many is that every part of the organization is involved in the draft. The draft is used by marketing departments, sales departments. This next 3 days, teams will be entertaining sponsors and advertisers and business partners and suite holders, and they will use this opportunity to market to more.
You know, we've been saying the NFL draft's name wrong like all these years. Do you know the actual official name of the NFL draft is actually the National Football League Annual Player Selection Meeting? Draft's not even in the title. We just say it.
That's wild.
It's right. I just wanted everyone to know that. Here's something else I want people to know. As excited as I am about the draft, as much as you are about to learn about the draft over these next 3 hours, I'm actually anti-draft. Wow. Because I think it's anti-labor. Because I think that all of these young adults should be able to choose where they go. I think it should be able to negotiate their salaries. Instead, these teams are going to pick them. They're going to say, here's your salary. There's really no negotiating it. But that's the world we live in, and so I'm still very excited for this draft.
He has my vote.
I'll tell you, what excites me about this draft, every team has a pick in the first round. That never happens. And now, it probably won't be the case 24 hours from now. We'll see some trades. JJ will get into that throughout the course of the next 3 hours. But every fan base is engaged. Now, for all these fans, for these GMs, as Amy said, for the entire organization, this is their Super Bowl in so many different ways, which leads to the popularity of the draft. I am so obsessed with this draft. You talk about going to school on different trends. I think we're going to see the most amount of running backs ever selected in the first 100 picks.
Okay.
I think we're going to see 2 tight ends taken in the top 10.
Yep.
I think we're going to see a running back taken in the top 5.
Okay.
And we're going to see Shohei Ohtani go in this draft. JJ, I can't wait.
I can't wait for it either. And we talked about the trades. There's going to be so many trades. Excuse me, but one of the things, we have not seen any team trade a first-round pick yet. I don't know that we're going to see it until a team is on the clock, because everyone wants to fill it out. You just talked about how it's a seller's market, right? So who's going to be the first team that finally takes an offer, right? They don't want to set the market. That no one in the NFL ever wants to set the market. No one wants to go first in free agency. And I don't think that anyone's going to want to go first in this draft. But once one team does, that's when all the teams start to do it. I think we could see double-digit trades in the first round of the draft.
And you talked about 2 tight ends potentially going in the top 10 picks. It's all about where those runs happen. I remember when I got drafted, I anticipated being a second-round pick. There were a run on guards in the first round. Next thing you know, my phone rings. So there's going to be some surprise names that come up.
Yep.
Just hold on for dear life. It's the NFL draft, or whatever the hell you called it about 2 minutes ago. It's exciting. I can't wait to watch it.
And that's what I love. Yes, the names who fall all the way to day 2 or even day 3 get a lot of pub, but the names who get shot up to the first round and, hey, my name's Jack Campbell, and all of a sudden I'm drafted way higher than I was supposed to be, but how cool is that? And I'm so excited for those guys. So, yes, there will be some disappointment, but there's going to be some heroic stories as well.
After finishing 3-14 a season ago, the Titans secured the top pick in the draft for the first time since relocating to Tennessee. But there is good news. All signs point to the Tennessee Titans, Kyle, drafting a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, when I think about the guy they're going to go with, Cam Ward from the University of Miami, he's a guy that I got to watch week in, week out. I live in South Florida now, so it's obviously all over the television is the Miami Hurricanes. And there was this guy back there slinging the football around with absolute freakish talent. You see him right there, big number 1, Cam Ward. He's got the physical skill set to be able to play quarterback and probably take a punishment in the pocket, but doesn't because he's got such great mobility, and obviously the arm talent is what has jumped him to the top of the draft boards. And he has quietly been that guy that's just sitting at the number one spot that we haven't even discussed. We've talked about everybody except for Cam Ward. And for Tennessee, you obviously see that Will Levis lowlight reel coming in to this segment. And it's all about not losing you the football game. And with his arm talent and his ability to take care of the football, the Tennessee Titans will be heading immediately in the right direction.
Yeah, I think I saw somewhere, like any other year, Cam Ward is not the number one overall pick. He's not QB1. Okay, it's 2025. It doesn't matter. Like, he is the top quarterback in this draft. The team with the number one overall pick, the Tennessee Titans, need a quarterback. And he's the guy that they have identified very early on, really from the combine. And then they just had their priors confirmed every single time they met with him again. And at a pro day, continuing on, they're like, this is our guy. So much so that Mike Borgonzi, the new general manager of the Tennessee Titans, he's like, don't even call me, guys. We don't care what your offer could be. You can hand us the next 3 years of your draft. We don't want it. I'm good. Cam Ward's our guy.
Far and away the best quarterback in this draft. And the confidence Cam Ward gets to walk into OTAs with, knowing they said I was their guy months ago and I am their guy. Let me take this franchise by the reins. Can make any throw. The ball comes out hot, but surprisingly with so much touch as well. He's not just back there throwing fastballs. He's making sure the ball's in the right place, and they're very catchable footballs, as poised and calm as they come, even maybe to a fault. As long as the offensive line holds up, he will buy property and build his dream back there. You cannot rush him. He will not falter. Let's see him turn it around.
From a business perspective, what goes on in organizations when you have the number one pick or anything close to the number one pick is a quality versus quantity analysis. Do you believe there's a player at number one that is of the quality that warrants taking him at number one, or do you want to trade down and amass quantity as opposed to one person deeming him to be of quality? Well, as you men have already noted, Tennessee has clearly decided that he is of the quality, Cam is of the quality that justifies using that number one pick rather than amassing quantity.
The Tennessee Titans officially tomorrow night will have joined the chats. You need a star quarterback to be able to compete in the AFC. Think about the incredible quarterbacks with Mahomes and Burrow and Allen and Jackson. And I think Cam Ward's going to be one of those guys. JJ referenced prior drafts, prior years. Look, I've talked to people around the league who think he would have been the third or fourth quarterback last year, which is rarefied air. That's Caleb Williams, that's Jaden Daniels, and Cam Ward. That's a positive to me. And I'm listening to how you guys are describing him. He's Josh Allen.
If he's in the Bo Nix category, we're happy.
If he's in the J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix category.
Well, we got to see J.J. play a little bit of football.
Well, think about what he did in college. I mean, I think Cam Ward, and this is, again, I live for Josh Allen. I think he has Josh Allen qualities.
Wow.
Like, I really think the Tennessee Titans, this is one of the best days in their franchise they've had in a long time. That's a great market, great fan base. They have players. Callahan's a good offensive mind. I'm telling you, don't be surprised when Cam Ward hits the ground running. I think he's going to have an excellent career and 2025 season in Tennessee. Joining us live right now from Green Bay, let's bring in Aditi Kunkabala. And Aditi, you had a chance to speak with the players that are going to be center stage tomorrow night.
I'm going to jump on that train right there. Josh Allen is an excellent comparison because remember, Josh Allen took a huge leap from the time he was drafted to his second year. And when you talk to Cam Ward, he's expecting much the same. This is a young man that only threw the ball about 8-9 times a game when he was in high school. He started in the FCS at the University of Incarnate Word. He went up to Washington State. And then he went to Miami, where he finally had better teammates, where he finally had a spotlight. And as you've all just said, in Brian Callahan, he has a great quarterback tutor. Now, he wouldn't say that he knows he's 100% going to the Titans, but I did have a chance to catch up with him, and he seems pretty confident where he'll be headed tomorrow night.
To me, we are looking at someone who is worthy of having this moment, and I think he's going to be a star in the NFL sooner rather than later.
You know, Brock brilliantly said that he's comfortable, almost to a fault, too comfortable. You hear the way that he talks, the confidence that this young man clearly has within himself, and that is not something that you can draw on externally. It's inside of you. He's got it. Tennessee Titans, if they do end up getting him at number one, it's going to be a great pick.
The Browns are coming off of a season where they scored the fewest points in the league and ranked near the bottom in points allowed. Not a good recipe for success, so they need help on both sides of the ball, and, oh, what do you know? might be able to kill two birds with one pick, Brock.
That's exactly right, Adam. This team needs everything, so you get a guy who can do everything. Travis Hunter is the pick. But what does that look like, right? What does that look like? We've been talking about, hey, he can just do both. What does both look like? Here's what it looks like. He's the best wide receiver in this draft, and yet corner comes to him more naturally. What I would love to see is he spends most of his time in the wide receiver room because he needs to know what his quarterback expects. He needs to know how they're seeing coverages. He needs to know what the other skill guys out there are doing. Defensively, they need less help out there. So, hey, we have DBs. You're going to come in on third downs. You're going to have your package of coverages. Hey, on this play you blitz. On this play it's cover 3, it's cover 2, it's man. He's been doing that his whole life. I would love to see a scenario where he's spending all his time with Kevin Stefanski, who is calling the offense this year, and learning that offense all throughout OTAs. Get some reps at DB when you can, but then come training camp, it's this is what you're good at. These are the plays you're going to come in defensively and help us. He can play both. It will be tricky. You are asking a lot out of him, but that's how I see it playing out.
Adam, you referenced addressing two needs with one pick, and I thought where you were headed was saying they should draft a private equity partner. Because if they were to draft a private equity partner, that way they could address that little guaranteed contract issue they have, as well as funding for a new stadium. But if instead of doing that, they're going to focus on the field, I love the Travis Hunter pick. Absolutely love it. Brock, you made terrific points, of course, about wide receiver versus corner. I will simply note that as to corner, Cleveland had the fewest interceptions in the league last year, so perhaps he can help in that regard, unless they do as I suggested and draft a private equity partner.
I think Hunter's going to be a sensational pro. And, you know, it's interesting, and that's why I wanted you to go in that direction, Brock, and you played defensive back. See, to me, I would almost frame it the opposite way. Full-time corner, people think that I talked to, he could be Patrick Surtain, and then he could still be Malik Neighbors on offense at receiver, take some short passes and go. But look, a lot of different ways to spin it. And I'm fascinated to see what Cleveland does here at 2. It'll be Hunter. And whether or not later in the draft they're in the quarterback business. I mean, Kenny Pickett, who I still think can play, Joe Flacco. You know, we'll see what happens if there's any movement on Kirk Cousins. If they draft a quarterback later on, fascinated to see what happens in Cleveland. And I think Travis Hunter, this kid is special. He's Shohei Ohtani, and you don't pass on Babe Ruth. The New York Football Giants have changed everything but their head coach and their GM. JJ, what direction are they going to go with the number 3 pick?
Adam, I'm not going to get up from my chair and go run like the New York Giants, and Joe Schoen may go run to the podium to draft Penn State edge rusher Abdul Carter. But that's the pick. Look, I can go ahead and give you the blanket caveat, and we really should for this entire show, that any team can trade down. The Cleveland Browns can trade down. The Giants can trade down. Abdul Carter's the pick when they stick there at number 3 overall. And you're going to say, wow, Jonathan, don't they have a lot of pass rushers? Yeah, but you don't pass up on somebody like this who, if he had clean medicals, he kind of has a bum shoulder, kind of has a bum foot, he would honestly maybe be the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft, Kyle. What do you do with all these pass rushers?
So much value there at number 3 with this guy, because I'll tell you what, he's the kind of rusher that keeps you up as an offensive lineman the night before a game. Most of the guys, you understand you're going to have a hard-fought physical matchup. You might not touch Abdul Carter the entire game. His cross-face ability, his initial burst off the line of scrimmage, and his toughness and his strength at the point of attack set him apart from the rest of his peers. That's why you said if he was a clean bill of health guy, we could be looking at him at number 1. And for the New York Giants, they're going to have the luxury of having 2 elite pass rushers with Burns and potentially Carter. You got Lawrence in the middle of that defense, which leaves you Kayvon Thibodeau and the option to maybe make a move there and go fill a need elsewhere on your roster, JJ.
Maybe make a move, maybe give him the 5th-year option. That also is potentially coming up here as well. And I agree 100% with you, JJ. When you're up there, when you're at 3, you cannot be drafting for need. We can look at this long term. Do they need a quarterback? Yes. They have Russell Wilson on a 1-year deal, Jameis Winston on a 2-year deal. They need a quarterback. And there's a scenario where they could trade back up into the end of the first round. They're picking at 34. It does not take as much to get up into the back end of the first round to say 28 or so, where we think Jackson Dart's range might be. And we've heard a lot about Brian Daboll really liking Jackson Dart.
That'd be a home run in the first.
Yeah, it certainly would. All right, well, that does it for the New York Football Giants. Mike Vrabel's return to New England marks the start of a new era. And the Pats, well, they're on the clock at number 4.
I love Mike Vrabel. So excited to see what Mike Vrabel has in store for the Patriots this season. Almost as excited as I am to welcome in Mike Renner, superstar from CBS Sports HQ, to our Top Draft preview show. And listen, Vrabel obviously has made it clear that Drake May is his guy, quarterback of the future, and I think that he's going to be a true star in this league. So, Kyle, what are you thinking for Vrabel and the Patriots around Drake May with the 4th overall pick?
Well, obviously, they want to find a way to make their strengths even stronger. And with Drake May making it obvious in year 1 that he is the guy for the future, you need to fortify and bolster that offensive line. Will Campbell out of LSU is a guy that there's been a lot of articles written about, and I'm sure Mike will get into this as we do all day on Pushing the Pile every day. But Will Campbell is a football player. You're born a football player. And for the New England Patriots, what do they love? They love football players. He's got versatility. He's got toughness. He's got the pedigree of playing in the SEC. And I just think he's a perfect fit for what Mike Vrabel's trying to build. You watch the guys they brought into the building this offseason when he took over, and it was clear to me that toughness and physicality were at the forefront of what he was trying to get done. Will Campbell fills that need on the offensive line.
Yeah, there's really no doubt across the NFL and with folks that I've talked to that Will Campbell will be the pick. About a week ago when I was filling out my mock draft, I was like, will it be Will Campbell or Armand Membu? Like, could they like them both equally? No, it's going to be Will Campbell. In fact, we just talked about Abdul Carter at number 3 overall to the New York Giants. If for some reason Abdul Carter falls and is available to the New England Patriots at 4, I think the pick is still Will Campbell.
Wow.
I didn't realize that. Wow. I will say, this feels like a tone-setting pick. It feels like a decade ago when the Washington drafted Brandon Scherff from the top 5, another kind of weak draft, and they just said, let me just go out and get a guy who we know is going to be good. That's how this pick feels. He's the nastiest offensive lineman in this draft. He's the most technically sound offensive lineman in this draft, but I do got to bring up the elephant in the room, the arm length. But no, it's not the arm length. It's the wingspan, people. He has the shortest wingspan, or will have the shortest wingspan of any tackle in the NFL by over an inch. The day he hits the NFL football field, that matters. You block with your sternum, and then you got to go out with those hands. You don't block from your shoulder, so it's the wingspan, not the arm length, that I'm worried about.
I'm someone has to be the first guy, right? Nobody thought that you could blindly no-look jump over someone until Saquon Barkley did it. I'm sure one day there was a thought no one will ever catch a ball with one hand in an NFL game, and now it's barely even a highlight. So, yeah. No one's done it yet with those long arms. Someone has to be the first, and I don't feel that should outweigh the tape. And the tape says you can't get around him. The tape says he holds up his side of the line of scrimmage, and if somebody has to be the first, maybe it'll be Will Campbell.
And you know what? I think in the NFL, everybody gets beat. But when you watch Will Campbell's tape, he loses early in the rep, and that might be because of his length. But one thing that stood out to me on tape about Will Campbell, he always recovers and finds a way to finish and get the guy blocked, which is what I'm sure Mike Vrabel and his crew are loving about his film.
So I agree it's Will Campbell. I'll throw 2 things out. Number 1, Mike Vrabel did have Derrick Henry in Tennessee. And if they happen to pick Ashton Genty, who I think is going to be a superstar, and he's the weapon around Drake May, I would say that's fantastic. I also am curious if you're going to see a potential trade in this spot. And maybe they would consider moving down if somebody wanted to trade up at the end of the day for Ashton Genty. Time right now to send it over to Katie and Jeff.
Thanks so much, Adam. It's time now for Instant Impact. Obviously, you've already seen Jeff in the show. I'm Katie Mox. Jeff, a class full of talent, but who's going to be an instant impact fantasy-wise no matter where they land?
The number 1 answer to that question is Ashton Genty. He's perhaps the most highly anticipated fantasy rookie to hit the NFL since Saquon Barkley. We saw the numbers last year. Outstanding. True 3-down back, has potential to come in and be an immediate RB1, so a top 10 fantasy running back. And I don't care where he lands. He could go anywhere from 5 to 10. Now, I will tell you later in the show where I think he lands, and I do think it's going to be a good one. But immediately it's him. But it's not only Ashton Genty in this class. Tyler Warren is special. Last year he played, and I'm not joking, every position for Penn State. And not only that, played it well, went over 1,000 yards, is an absolute monster from a size profile, can carry the ball out of the backfield. Name the last time you've seen a tight end do that.
Yeah.
He's special. He's built like Gronk. He's athletic. But I should say this. He's not Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is a unicorn, so let's just keep that in check there. How about Cam Ward, too? Let's round out with a little trio here. The Davey O'Brien winner, big arm. He's got that mobile ability as well and that swag on the field. I love the way he plays football. Now, I also will say, last year we were spoiled. 6 quarterbacks in the top 12. A lot of those guys hit the ground running. Of course, Bo Nix may be one of the biggest surprises of that bunch. I don't know if we're going to get that out of Ward in year 1. You may have to temper your expectations a little bit, and it's not a knock on him. It's more the surrounding cast. Tennessee has some building to do, but the long-term outlook is still very favorable.
Okay, and I actually think the short-term outlook in terms of the Titans win total at 5.5, I actually like this over. Now, Jeff, as you know, they've gone under their projected win total 3 years in a row. They were just 3-14 last season, but they did have some close losses there, and you got to think this guy is a lot better than Will Levis was. Even though the division is getting a little bit better, in the scheme of all the divisions, they're still a little bit weaker. I do like the Titans over the 5.5. It is juiced to -140, so that's my best play there. Win tops, draft special rolls on. We're heading to Duval, where the Jags are on the clock.
Getting the Jaguars back on track with a new head coach, dare I say, boy genius. Love Liam Cohen at the helm. They have the 5th pick, Kyle, in the draft.
You know what? They've got a really good receiver. They've got a young quarterback. Well, he's not so young anymore. They got a good quarterback. They don't have anybody circled in that regard. Well, they watched the Super Bowl like we did, and they saw the easiest way to win games and make superstars look human is to put pressure on the quarterback from the internal part of the pocket. And I'm going to go with Mason Graham, the defensive tackle. And I think about a guy who is equally as stout in the run game as he is in the pass. There's a lot of things that he has yet to learn in the pass rush department. He's got a couple pitches he throws really well, but he could stand to learn maybe a changeup here and there. I love the way he takes on double teams, and I think that you can learn a lot about a human being by watching them take on run blockers time and time again. And Mason Graham stood out to me as the kind of teammate I would like to have in my front 7 on my football team, and I think the Jaguars will benefit from having him.
Kyle, I love your idea. We saw the stats just a moment ago. Last season, Jacksonville was tied for 4th worst in terms of points given up per game, 5th fewest sacks in the league, and bottom quartile in terms of rushing yards given up per game. A quarterback's best friend can be the defense, because the fewer points Jacksonville allows, the less pressure there is on Trevor Lawrence and the offense to score points. You give up fewer, you need to score fewer. So assuming Trevor looks to be back, and he does, I love your pick.
For years in the Big Ten, offensive lines rather had no answer for Mason Graham. And it was outside of the Big Ten. Go back to 2 years ago, the championship season, the Rose Bowl game, and just watch number 55. Watch him destroy Alabama and Jalen Milroe and everything that they were attempting to do. Jacksonville is in a great position. Hey, offensively, we're pretty good. We got our quarterback. Where can we impact ourselves immediately? The defensive tackle position. And Liam Cohen knows that firsthand. He watched Vita Vea all last year disrupt anything that offenses were trying to do. Maybe he wants a guy who can do just that for his own team.
Brock, you're so good about this because even earlier when you talked about Will Campbell and maybe he doesn't have the ideal length, right, or wingspan. Mason Graham, watch the tape and what he did against the big boys. He doesn't have the most ideal body either, especially when it comes to the arms, right? Very short arms there on the inside. Now, of course, he's going to be an interior defensive lineman. Look, I think that this could be the first wild card of the draft, number 5 with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have a first-time general manager in 34-year-old James Gladstone. You don't know which way he's going to go. Is he actually going to take the Mason Graham, who doesn't fill out every single trait? Is he really going to take a running back, number 5 overall? Or is he going to do a massive trade back? Or is he one of those teams that wants to go up and try to get a Travis Hunter, right? I think the Jaguars could do anything right here. And if they stay at 5, I love the pick of Mason Graham. I'm just not convinced, and I was convinced of the first 4 picks. They're all staying. I'm not convinced of what is actually going to happen here at 5.
I love the way you framed that, JJ, because I think that this is a new brass, and it's an exciting brass. These are smart people in charge now, which the Jacksonville Jaguars desperately needed. I think Ashton Genty's in play here, and I think that Jacksonville is a great destination for him. I also think that a team could try and trade up to leapfrog the Raiders, like the Chicago Bears. I think Genty is perfect for Ben Johnson. They would have to trade up to number 5. Everything's in play for Jacksonville, which is a good segue to Vegas, because they went back to the future with the hiring, of course, of Pete Carroll and the signing of Geno Smith. And this is a spot where I think if Genty's still there, that would be the pick.
That would be the pick, right? If he is still there, if the board has played out the way that it has on this Topps draft show, Genty has to be the pick for the Las Vegas Raiders. When you consider what he did at Boise State, how many missed tackles that he created, 151 forced missed tackles, which was about 33% more than the guy who's number 2 on that list. When you consider the home run play ability, he had 12 rushes of 50 or more yards. The next closest guy had 5. Okay, and so this guy is that home run hitter. Now, can he catch out of the backfield? Is he that sort of route runner that maybe a Saquon Barkley is or a Christian McCaffrey? No. But if you're asking and looking for the best running back in this year's draft, and this is the running back renaissance that we just saw in 2024, Ashton Genty's your guy.
Oh, hey, we get to talk about the Raiders, so this may surprise you, men. I got a few things to say. I love the hiring of Pete Carroll. Terrific. I think adding Geno Smith was very smart. And JJ, I love your thought about adding Ashton Genty to the roster. Look, I love the running game. I didn't need a renaissance to like the running game. I have loved the running game since I joined the Raiders a million years ago. I love this idea for a pick. And to anyone who wants to suggest to me, oh, Amy, you don't want to take a running back with a pick that high. You don't take a running back in the top 10 picks. Well, you know what? I have 2 words for you. Marcus Allen.
When you think Pete Carroll, you think running backs and DBs. And if Ashton Genty's there, you have to take him. And more importantly, this is a Chip Kelly offense now. And a Chip Kelly offense, when you first think about it, we always have images of flash and speed and everything on the outside. Chip Kelly offenses have a downhill running back. At UCLA, it was Zach Charbonnet. At Ohio State, it was Trayvon Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. Kyle knows this better than anyone. Chip Kelly offenses are ugly. They always have a boulder in the backfield who can run. Not you. Kyle's pretty, but everything else is
personal.
Chip Kelly's offenses always have a downhill running back that set the tone, and then you can have fun outside the hashes. So Chip Kelly's banging on his desk right now.
Yeah, and they've got the 2 tight ends there, so they can stay balanced. And one thing about the running back position, if you're going to get a star running back, and I've heard my older brother Chris talk about this a number of times, it's kind of the cherry on top for your offense. You need to build the foundation of the home first before you put up the ornate chandelier, okay? You need to get the base, the foundation. I like the offensive line in Las Vegas, but I'm not quite sure if they are ready to win now in that organization. And for running backs, the window is 6 years. The window is 7 years of elite production. Are the Raiders overlapping with Ashton Genty's window? If not, find a way to get yourself closer to winning with a roster move outside of the running back position.
That's an excellent point. Can't wait to see what happens at 6.
A draft class full of playmakers, but who will make the plays for your fantasy teams next season? It is time now for Fantasy Focus. And Jeff, we're starting with the Heisman Trophy winner himself, Travis Hunter.
The Travis Hunter conundrum, right? What position is he? Is he both? I don't know if he is necessarily. We're not going to find out, obviously, until after the presumptive team, the Browns, pick him and let us know. But there are very different outcomes for fantasy purposes depending on his position eligibility. If he's a full-time wide receiver, there's no doubt in my mind he's one of the top wide receivers in this class. He will be a top 5, if not a top 3 option when it's all said and done for your dynasty drafts. If he's a part-time receiver and full-time corner, I don't know if he's draftable in rookie drafts. Unless you're in an IDP league, which is something different, but for the masses out there, that's the problem. And again, we're not going to know until the Browns ultimately tell us.
You know, I will say for him to be drafted as a wide receiver is probably more lucrative for him than a quarterback when it comes to that kind of money. He did say that he will not play if he doesn't play both, which of course nobody believes. As for the other pass catchers, we should know that there is a group of first-round talents who could possibly be, in your fantasy starting lineups next season.
Yeah, right now we expect 3 of these 4 guys to be selected in the first round. Though you never know with the first round, especially the back end. But let's start with Matthew Golden. The wheels. Sub 4.3 speed. When you do that at the combine, you improve your draft stock. But the question ultimately, is he well-rounded enough to be a consistent fantasy option, or is he going to be one of those more classic boom or bust guys? I think he's probably more the latter than the former. That doesn't mean he's not going to offer value, but just as long as our expectations are in line. Tetaroa McMillan offers a big slot profile, big body guy, maybe not as much speed, and maybe he'll end up being more of a 1A. I'll give you a sense of where I think he goes later in the show. Now, from there, Emeka Egbuka, super polished, right? Very much like his former college teammate Jackson Smith and Jigba, should step in and make an impact right away, but I don't know where the ceiling ultimately is for him. And then finally, Luther Burden, nothing but ceiling, but the floor is much lower. Thing I love about him, though, dynamic run after catch for days. So these guys are impact makers, but maybe not to the level of, say, Malik Neighbors or guys like that from years past.
Okay, helpful information there. Okay, running back wise, when you look at this, we're of course looking at a loaded class behind Ashton Genty, right? Or
Look, I mean, look, ear to ear. Look, like this class, I'm geeking out over this class. What happened to running back? Running back was dead. It went away, and then all of a sudden, Saquon said no. Derrick Henry said no. Ashton Genty's coming in. I can't even get the words out. Look at Amari and Hampton. 3-down skill set, should step in, be an impact player right away. The 2 Ohio State kids offer you something different, right? Quinshon Judkins, big body guy, early down, runs to contact. Love him. Huge, too. Saw him in person at the Combine. Huge. Travion Henderson, not huge, but electric, dynamic playmaker. But it doesn't stop there. You look at a guy like Caleb Johnson, who is silky smooth, gives me Arian Foster vibes. Maybe not going to run away from you, but can be a 3-down guy and has the size to boot. And then how about the hero of the college football playoffs, Cam Skattebo. Cameron, as he told me at the Combine, maybe not the fastest guy, but great pass catcher out of the backfield, will run to contact, loves football, the type of player that coaches will love and fantasy players will ultimately love as well.
Okay, so no running backs were taken in the first round last year. The line this year is at 2.5 with that under heavily juiced. But Jeff, there is also a deep tight end class as well. What players are you focused on for the tight ends?
Yeah, I'll calm down a little bit, but it's hard not to geek out over this class as well, because of course we have the player who I mentioned earlier, Tyler Warren, who obviously offers you that complete skill set. 3-down guy, can do so much on the football field, but a lot of people think it's him than everybody else. It's not. It's him and Colston Loveland at the top of this class. Now, Colston Loveland is a bit of a different player. He's a mismatch, has a wide receiver skill set. When he is on the field, it's going to be really tough for opposing defenses to contain him. Very likely a first half of the first round pick. But then you go from there. You have Harold Fannin, who put up massive numbers last year. Now, he's more of a move option, a little bit undersized, kind of gives me Evan Ingram vibes, but he could put up some numbers. Mason Taylor, his premium bloodlines, not only his father, but his uncle in the Hall of Fame, and this kid can play flat out, has the ball skills, big frame, all of that you're looking for. And speaking of big frame, Elijah Arroyo as well. Can get downfield, can play above the rim, high upside. Love this kid at tight end.
Quite the offseason for Gang Green. Aaron Glenn comes in with a whole new mindset and a brand new QB. Justin Fields leaves Pittsburgh, and he's going to lead a team that was so dysfunctional that even Amy's cousin Paul, who loves the Jets, he's out. He's done. JJ, what are you expecting to see from the Jets?
Well, look, I like the way that the Jets do business in the offseason. I like how straightforward they were about things. You know, they went out and they only really signed 1- and 2-year contracts with a lot of these guys, right? I mean, Justin Fields signed a 2-year deal. If it doesn't work out, it's really a 1-year deal, and then we'll see. But when you kind of look down at everything else they did, they made Alan Lazard take a pay cut. They signed Josh Reynolds. They got Chuck Okafor there along the offensive line, and so they have set themselves up right now, because we always talk about drafted for the defense and how the defense should have been this 85 Bears last year, and then they weren't, right? So, okay, you still feel good about the defensive side? Great. How about on the offensive side? They should be targeting either an offensive tackle, the best one available, or a tight end to help out Justin Fields.
And you know what? I think when you got a guy like Justin Fields at the quarterback position, you understand that you truly have a quarterback that the guys are going to rally around. One thing that you've heard from teammates of Justin Fields at both of the stops he's made in the NFL is that he's a tough dude. Yep. He's prepared. He stays after. There's no question about his commitment to his job. And I feel like there may have been that lacking in the building last year. And I wasn't in the building, so I can't exactly say that. But with Justin Fields, there's no question. Guys love him. And they have the tremendous opportunity to be able to bolster that offensive line. Obviously, you saw in this intro, there's a lot of team needs for the New York Jets. But there's a lot of great players out there, Adam.
This will be a run-first team. Aaron Glenn's made it clear. He feels he has a 3-headed monster at running back with Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, and Isaiah Davis. And help with the best offensive tackle remaining will help that. My concern is passing the football. specifically getting rid of the ball quickly. That is something that Justin Fields doesn't do, and that's something that new offensive coordinator, former Detroit pass game coordinator Tanner Engstrand doesn't do. Detroit and Jared Goff didn't get rid of the ball quickly, but they did run the ball. So it's all about running the football here and following it up with solid defense. Of course, Justin Fields can basically be considered a fourth running back when plays call for it as well. The key here is you can't get in a situation where you're asking Justin Fields to do things outside of his depth. How deep you feel that depth is may vary, but it's all about setting him up for success, and an offensive tackle can do that.
Adam, I love the fact that you referenced Cousin Paul, because just the other day I was discussing the Jets with Cousin Paul. New head coach, new general manager, there's going to, a new quarterback. There's a change in all three of those positions. So the issue then becomes, should the Jets be taking a long-term view, setting things up now, recognizing maybe we don't win immediately, but we're going to set it up for the long term, or do they strive to win immediately? Brock just mentioned the running game. Last season, the offense was tied. Not tied. They had the second fewest rushing yards per game, and the defense was tied for fourth fewest interceptions. So look, address two things. Find a way to run the ball and find a way to snag the ball, and maybe you can win more sooner rather than later.
I've always been a Justin Fields fan. That is documented. What goes noted to me is Aaron Glenn picked Justin Fields, because Aaron Glenn clearly has a Justin Fields opinion as the Lions defensive coordinator those years going up against the Chicago Bears twice a season. So whatever Justin Fields' upside is, which at this stage of Fields' career, let's be fair, and I'm a Fields fan, it's an educated guess, right? Yeah, I thought he played well for Pittsburgh. I would have never benched him. It goes noted they tried to bring him back in Pittsburgh, and he chose to go to the Jets. I think he's going to be a success. I think he can throw the ball to Garrett Wilson. They played together in college. I think they can run it. Two running backs. I think Ty Warren would be an excellent pick, 7th overall at the tight end position. Aaron Glenn should have been a head coach long time ago. This roster will be maximized by Aaron Glenn. I'm sure of that. Aditi Kunkabala joins us once again. And Aditi, I know you spent the day with the draft prospects as they did some community service around Green Bay. What was that like?
Well, they have, and in fact, that's where we were earlier. It was a Play 60 event where the 15 young men who are here for the draft played with Special Olympics athletes, did all sorts of drills, laughed. Travis Hunter signed autographs. Jalen Milroe threw passes. There's a lot of activity going on behind me, too, though. This is the Draft City Music Festival. There are bouncy houses, multiple bouncy houses. You can get your face painted. You can hear the live music. We ran into a contingent from Pittsburgh earlier who's checking out the scene because, of course, it's Pittsburgh that is hosting next year. And there is also beer. 6 local breweries have come together to brew a very, very special draft beer. Maybe when we're done for the night, our crew will tell you how that goes down. But earlier, we did indeed talk to Penn State's Abdul Carter. He is the presumptive number 3 pick. He had some thoughts on that number 3 picking team, the New York Giants. I opened by asking him how he's physically feeling. He said, feeling great.
Aditi, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We're going to check back in with you coming up in our final hour. Meanwhile, Carolina for us on the clock at number 8. JJ, where are they going to go?
I think they could go one of two ways. If they stay at 8, I see them taking Georgia edge rusher Jalen Walker, right? He's a rangy guy. He was an off-the-ball linebacker. 8 or so years ago in the NFL, we would have called him a tweener. Now we say, hey, see ball, go get ball. Right. Like, you're really, really good and long and fast, and so you're versatile, and we're going to be able to use you. I could see him being the pick at number 8. He also led a really good Georgia team in sacks and tackles for losses and pressures, and he was the Butkus Award winner, as we see right there. So he could be the guy to finally help Carolina's pass rushing woes that they have had for several years. I also could see the Carolina Panthers trading back. Not trading back too far, right? They're not going from 8 to 20 with the Denver Broncos, but could they go from 8 to 10, 8 to 11, somewhere in there? Just something to keep an eye on.
You know, one of the more disappointing stories in all of last season, I would argue, is the Carolina defense. When you consider how much money was spent, how many changes were made, and nothing to show for it, hopefully Jalen Walker can get that back on track. New Orleans. Well, apparently Derek Carr's hurt, and no, it's not the oblique or the hand that kept him out of so many games last season. It's a shoulder. And you have to address the quarterback position. And yes, for me, it's Shedeur Sanders. I understand their skepticism on whether he's a first-round pick, whether he's even a good quarterback at all. But if it were to work in a system, it would be a Kellen Moore system, which is all about pre-snap, the shifts, the motions, using up all 53 and the third yard side to side. And Shedeur is smart. He is accurate. I understand not all 32 teams are excited about him, but like any prospect, all it takes is one. Kyle, you made the Bo Nix, Sean Payton example earlier. Maybe that could be the same situation.
And you talked about Kellen Moore inheriting this New Orleans Saints organization as the head coach. And obviously, you want to get a guy that's tailor-made for your offense. And when I think about the Saints, I think about the cap hell that they've been in. They've been really terrible with their contracts and obviously the quarterback situation they have currently with Derek Carr. If you bring in Shedeur Sanders, you have to have the understanding that him and Kellen Moore are going to grow in this offense throughout that rookie deal. You're not looking to win the lottery day one with Shedeur Sanders. You're trying to see growth day in, day out. And if there's anybody who can handle being under the microscope that being in the NFL comes along with, it's Shedeur Sanders. He grew up in it. He's ready for it. So we can throw everything we want at the stage, but Shedeur's not going to blink. And at the number 9 pick, I can see that happening. Number 10, I've got the Chicago Bears, obviously. Go Bears. I'm going to be picking Tyler Warren, okay? And I heard Ben Johnson talk about one of those long, drawn-out film days that he and GM Ryan Poles and assistant GM Ian Yates-Cunningham had during this pre-draft process. And there was one player that came up and the meeting just kind of stopped, and it was Tyler Warren. And they looked at each other like, this is a football player. And my co-host on Pushing the Pile, Mike Renner, says in scouting, the term football player, the phrase football player, is reserved only for the elite level guys. Yep. Tyler Warren is that. His ability to line up any number of spots on the field offers Ben Johnson so many weapons with one player. I think it's a perfect fit for the Bears at 10.
I think that's a very, very intriguing idea. Ben Johnson noted that in high school and in college, Caleb was predominantly a shotgun quarterback, and he's comfortable there. But they're going to spend a lot of time putting him under center and seeing how comfortable he can become under center. And your idea for a draft pick can help him become a lot more comfortable, perhaps a lot sooner.
I want to circle back on what Brock and JJ were talking about with the Saints at 9 and Shedeur Sanders. First of all, I think Kellen Moore absolutely can and will take a quarterback. I get the sense Jackson Darts might be a guy that he's eyeing for his system. But Shedeur, who I like a lot, and to Kyle's point, listen, he was raised at this. There's Deion, there's primetime. Sometimes I think primetime, overshadows what Deion brings to the table as a winner and a great football mind and coach. I think Shedeur is going to be a really good player. What are you hearing on where Shedeur Sanders ultimately is going to fall in this draft?
He could go out of the first round. He very well may not be a first-round quarterback. He may not be the second quarterback that is selected. Different teams have different valuations on him. More teams than not that I speak to tell me that they have a second-round grade on Shedeur Sanders. Why? Well, he has an average relatively arm. He has average, relatively athleticism. You're talking about getting drafted in the first or second day of the NFL draft. You are an incredible athlete. You compare it to your dad, or you compare it to other fantastic quarterbacks in this draft, it's average. You consider his completion percentage, very high, very accurate. Now break it down and see how many of those throws were at or behind the line of scrimmage. All of these things start to, and you had the Heisman Trophy winner that you were throwing to kind of help those things out. All those things start to add up a little bit before you even get to any sort of interviews and how he made me feel at a combine interview or at a pro day or how he carries himself, whatever you want to say about that. And so I think that there is a very good chance that he is not selected on Thursday night. I think the logical place he goes is 21 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But if he doesn't, and a team does not trade up for him back into the first round of the draft, he will be waiting to hear his name called until Friday.
And that could be a great thing for Shedeur Sanders. The longer you wait in the NFL draft, usually the better the team is going to pick you up. So instead of going somewhere that's not a great spot that's going to win immediately, he could be somewhere where they need him.
Quite the offseason for Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Deebo Samuel, gone. Leonard Floyd, gone. Travarius Ward, gone. Brock Purdy not signed yet, but he did report this week, so that's good stuff. Kyle, the 49ers have plenty of needs at that number 11 spot.
Yeah, there's a lot of those positions that would fill the need that the 49ers have, but I'm going to go with Walter Nolan, defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. This guy's dynamic, he's explosive, and he's one of those players that's lean cut. He's bigger than he looks. If you walk up on him on the football field, I'm sure he's even bigger in person. Obviously, the exodus of all the talent in San Francisco, both sides of the ball, but Leonard Floyd's a name that you mentioned, so that defensive front, that front seven, not as strong. You need to fill that need. We've seen an exodus over the last couple of years. We saw great players like DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead out the door. Well, let's reload, retool. Obviously, the Super Bowl window has shifted for the Niners, but like I said, reload on the defensive front.
I like that. I had that in my mock. I think you said it well, and the rest of these guys will as well. You mentioned, though, Adam, about Brock Purdy and how he doesn't have his big contract extension. Might take a while because that's the way the San Francisco 49ers do business. They usually wait deep into training camp, and he will be a quarterback who has paid more than $50 million in average annual value. You may have also heard Fred Warner, the all-universe linebacker there for the San Francisco 49ers. Look, he's 29 years old. He has 2 years left on his deal, and it's not going to take much to make him, once again, the highest-paid linebacker in the NFL. He's only $1 million off the average annual value mark set by Roquan Smith. And then lastly, George Kittle. Tight end, he did not report. He says it's not because of contract reasons. Could be for any reason. Whatever. Who cares? He does want a new contract, though. He does want to be paid as the highest paid tight end in NFL history, but he's 32 years old. So, yes, it's easy to make him the highest paid at $17,001,001, but how long do you want to do that deal? A lot more of a longer offseason yet again for the Niners.
Yeah, the exodus along this defensive line has been really understated. The guys next to Nick Bosa here, Jordan Elliott, Evan Anderson, Yetur Gross-Matos, you can forgive fans if they don't know those names. Those are not blue chip type of players. They need a guy who can make an impact, and especially on the interior. I love the Walter Nolan fit. For my money, he's the most physically gifted defensive tackle in this draft class. And he goes to a defensive line coach in Chris Kosarek, who has a great track record of developing these guys. So I love that fit. And, you know, Mason Graham, everyone talks about he's the #1 defensive tackle in this draft class. Well, Walter Nolan had the #2 run stop percentage behind only Mason Graham. So number 11, not too high for me.
I'm right there with you guys. Best defensive front seven available, because JJ just mentioned Fred Warner, and Mike, you just mentioned who the heck's lined up next to Bosa. Who the heck's lined up next to Fred Warner? I'll tell you, it's two linebackers who don't have a lot of experience. It is Fred Warner and who are these guys? Not that they can't play, because to San Francisco's credit, they've done a great job backing up a lot of young talent with guys who they were expecting to leave, like Travarius Ward or Talanoa Hufanga. But up front, not as much depth. Maybe they didn't expect so many guys to exit on the front than on the back end, because they're much more prepared on the back end. But I go linebacker, I go defensive lineman, and Fred Warner, best of luck to you, and you are going to earn every single penny of that highly paid contract, my friend. It may be a long year.
By the way, to JJ's point and information on Brock Purdy, he'll get paid. He's worth it. I think Warner eventually he'll get taken care of as well. Kittle, you know, he's enjoying wrestling. You know, I'm not too worried about George Kittle right about now. A lot going on. I'm not sure even with the defections, San Francisco's worse. They're different. I'm not sure necessarily they're worse. I think that group needed a bit of a makeover. Not winning the title against Kansas City, there was a clear hangover and a lot of distractions last year. I could see a bounce back year for San Francisco, even with all the changes and defections in the offseason.
Time now for Jeff and I to go deep on this year's draft class. We're talking players not at the top of the board, but still some names that you should know heading into this year's draft. Jeff, you're up first. I'm excited to hear who you're going to say.
Yeah, a lot of these guys are day 2 or day 3 guys, so it's kind of fun to get to talk about them. And a few weeks ago, I put out a rookie sleepers article, and for me, now the Deep Dynasty people know this isn't a sleeper, but the list absolutely started with Jalen Knoll, wide receiver, Iowa State. This kid is an absolute technician on the field, and at the combine in the pre-draft process, he tested off the charts. 4.39 40, 41.5-inch vert, 11.2 in the broad, and, you know, not the biggest guy, but tough, He'll play tough in combat situations, just dripping with upside. I think he's a day 2 pick. We're going to watch where he goes, but I love me some Jalen Knoll.
Okay, I'm going to go with the quarterback from Syracuse, Kyle McCord. And Jeff, he went to high school with Marvin Harrison Jr. McCord was a 5-star coming out. Harrison Jr. was a 3-star. Now, he did break the ACC single-season passing record with Cuse in 2024. He's probably the best anticipation thrower in this class. And Jeff, he's got a big body, well-suited for the NFL. He's 6'3", he's 218 pounds, and he can make every throw. I was talking to Ryan Wilson, who's one of our draft analysts, and he said in person he was so much more impressed with his arm, and just he's a better overall athlete than people give him credit for.
St. Joe's Prep in Philadelphia is where they went to high school. Shout out Philly. For me, next player on the list, Jaden Blue. We want a speed running back. We've seen a lot of these guys come into the league here recently. Upside, guys like Devon Achane. Who is it in this class? Well, for me, the list does start with Blue. 4.3 speed. He's a slasher. He has great vision. Really good pass catcher. Now, the question is he going to be more of a satellite back? Is he going to have limited touches at the next level? But still, the shades of Devon Achane are really what make him appealing for me. We'll see where he lands, but I like him as a guy to target in dynasty rookie drafts.
Shades of Devon Achane is a good shade to be in. I'm looking at Jack Besh here, wide receiver out of TCU. Jeff, overall 96 targets, only 1 drop. This kid is a yak machine, in part because he'll just run through arm tackles in space. Now, he's not exactly fast out the gate as some receivers, but man, once he hits strides, no one's catching him in the open field. Now, he does primarily line up in the outside, but he's got some vertical juice from the slot. He tracks the ball well through the air, and he's got a big body that makes it hard for DBs to break through.
And all fantasy aside, do yourself a favor and look up Jack Besh's inspirational story.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go to my next player. How about Isaac Teslaw? This kid is a very interesting height, weight, speed prospect. He's got the size 6'4", 214, 4.43 speed. Absolutely dominated at the D2 level. Did not necessarily dominate at Arkansas, but did show flashes of upside. And you long-term fantasy players, here's a comp for you that might hit you in the heart. Jeff Janis. Now, that may not be the best thing long-term, but raw upside athleticism, that's Teslaw.
Okay, Tesla kind of has the speed of a Tesla. Maybe. You like that? All right, maybe not. I'm going to look at Harold Fannin Jr. here, tight end from Bowling Green. You talked about him earlier today, and this guy's just basically a big wide receiver who really you can line up anywhere. He is shiftier than he looks, consistently wins from slot at the line of scrimmage. He's deceptive with his speed as well, even though he's got a funkier running style if you've seen him. But this is a utility guy, really, that you can use everywhere. In the screen game, down the seam, in space. He's got good hands. He's got good catchability. He's got a body that can absorb and break tackles. I think if we're going to comp him to anyone, maybe a little George Kittle for this guy.
Oh, I like that comp right there. Let's give you one more here. Every year we see deep running backs emerge. Maybe the second half of the season to get an opportunity. For me, a player to keep an eye on here is Jarquez Hunter. He's not the biggest back, compact, great contact balance, though really hard to bring him down. And again, not much in the passing game, but if he gets the opportunity, he's just the type of player as possibly a day 3 pick who could be a surprise for fantasy purposes in 2025.
Okay, and I'm going to go with Brashard Smith, a running back out of SMU. This guy's fast, right? He can slash through tackles. He's got the juice to get to the edge. Now, there are some things he can work on, right, even though he is very fast, but it's mostly because he was a wide receiver for most of his career, but I think he can be very special with the more reps that he gets in, so I really love Brashard Smith.
The Brian Schottenheimer era begins in Big D. Really, it does. It's crazy. I can't believe that actually happened. Can't wait to see what he's going to do in the draft, and of course Jerry and everyone involved with the Dallas Cowboys, how they're going to handle the number 12 pick. So, we're going to give you a little like or dislike. Mike, here's how it works. It's real simple. I'm going to give you a statement that I believe to be absolutely true. If you agree with the statements, green thumb up. If you disagree, Mike Renner, red thumb down. You got it?
I think I get it.
Okay.
I doubt it.
One thumb goes up, one thumb.
Yeah, I'm with JJ. I'm skeptical of that. Number 1, Dallas absolutely positively must, in the first round, draft a running back or a receiver. I don't want to hear about an offensive lineman. I don't want to hear about a defense. I don't want to hear about board. And I'm going to assume, for the sake of conversation, there will be a running back or receiver they really like at 12. Kyle.
I think it would help if you get another receiver in there. The defenses right now have their eyes trained on one guy, CeeDee Lamb.
Yep.
And if they can take him away, they can slow down their offense. You get a running back, You get that diversity of threats on the offensive side of the football, which is something they've lacked in Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, give me Matthew Golden right there at 12. Give me some speed, 4.29 opposite CeeDee Lamb. That is what they could pass on a running back at 12. Don't pass on a wide receiver at 12.
I think offensive line is very much in play. You lost a Hall of Fame offensive lineman this offseason. Zach Martin was a stalwart, and he's not walking through that door now. And you just got to look at your division. You got to go through the Philadelphia Eagles in that defensive line. And now you kind of got to go through the New York Giants. And if they get Abdul Carter in that defensive line. So I'm looking offensive line because they've had a great track record of that in the first round.
Weapons. They just need weapons. We don't know what this offense is going to look like. Dak needs help. CD needs help. Javonte Williams is not going to carry the load. So whether it's running back or wide receiver, I'm happy with it.
So with that as a backdrop here, and I'm going to assume that Ashton Genty is long gone, I'm a very big believer in Omarion Hampton in general, and specifically for Dallas here. He would be in the Rookie of the Year conversation if he was the pick at 12 overall. Like or dislike? I would support this pick completely. Kyle, quick thumb down.
I just think they're not built to harbor an offensive rookie of the year at the running back position currently. And there's other teams who would use Omarion Hampton better.
Yeah, I also really like that this is a quarterback award, first of all, and then also Travis Hunter, when he goes to Cleveland, they've already said, hey, you're a wide receiver, so, yeah, he's going to kill the conversation.
I just don't think there'd be any competition for him in that backfield. He would get so many touches. He would get so featured in Brian Schottenheimer's offense, who's going to want to run the ball more than Mike McCarthy did.
And he'll catch it out of the backfield.
Yep,
I think it's a perfect fit.
He can do everything. He is the perfect running back, and coming off of last year being the second best rushing season the NFL has ever had, I can't wait to see where he lands. But selfishly, I want that place to be Denver, so much so that I have to downvote this because I don't want him in Dallas.
And by the way, I do think he's a perfect fit for the Broncos, which we'll get to later. Now, with all that said, Matthew Golden is a better receiver pick for the Cowboys than Tet McMillan. Matthew Golden, need for speed, opposite side, CeeDee Lamb. I think this Mike Renner is a home run selection. You disagree?
I see Matthew Golden as more of a second-round sort of talent. Tetairo McMillan draft class is your number one type of wide receiver. Your guy you can pump 150-plus targets to, and he's going to produce on them. Golden's more of an ancillary option. You know, you got CeeDee Lamb there, so maybe it's a fit for the Cowboys, but I just don't see him ever being this 1,500-yard wide receiver, whereas I could see that very easily from T-Mac.
You know what I think the Dallas Cowboys saw was a guy in Matthew Golden who played at Houston, then he goes to Texas. And in Texas, in the biggest games, he played big. In the ACC Championship, in the college football playoff, he averaged more than 100 receiving yards per game in those final 4 games. That stuff matters to Jerry Jones. That's going to translate to the star. And, yeah, I think that they want him in the locker room more than Tet McMillan.
I think that's an excellent take.
They won a lot of games, Texas, but I would argue that in hindsight, we feel Matthew Golden had as big of an impact, whereas Tet McMillan, entering last season, it was, this dude out of Arizona is a dog. Going into the season before that, it's, this dude out of Arizona is a dog. I just feel when I think number one wide receiver, I want the guy who I've seen as a number one wide receiver for 3 years now.
T-Mac had more yards as a sophomore than Matthew Golden had the last 2 years combined. So, just a thought.
It was quite the active offseason following the Eagles' Super Bowl victory in New Orleans. So what surprised you guys the most? JJ, we'll start with you.
I think what surprised me the most, we talked about it a little bit ago, surprised me the most how much San Francisco lost this offseason, right? Like, you go back to last offseason, and they paid Christian McCaffrey. They gave him a raise when they didn't really have to. They gave Trent Williams a raise, and, probably didn't really have to, but did. And then they didn't trade away Brandon Ayuk, but paid him, and of course he had that injury. Well, then the bill came due, where Jed York, the owner, was like, yeah, we're not going to let you guys just keep spending like this, John Lynch, and we know that we have to pay Brock Purdy coming up and probably pay Fred Warner and maybe pay George Kittle. So they traded Deebo Samuel, lost Travarius Ward, Leonard Floyd went home to Atlanta, Drake Greenlaw went to Denver. Aaron Banks got the bag from Green Bay. So I was surprised at how much they lost and how much they were unable to retain for a team that is very much in a championship window.
The Rams are hilarious because every offseason it's the chickens have come home to roost. We got our ring. Now we got to start this thing over. And then before the season starts, it's actually we're going to try and win a Super Bowl. Devontae Adams is a Los Angeles Ram, and this came out of nowhere for me. Of course, Cooper Kupp was rumored to be traded at the time, but Devontae was kind of flirting with Green Bay, back and forth a little bit, and boom, now Matthew Stafford has another weapon. And as dangerous as the Nakua-Stafford connection is, this is going to be like DA with Aaron Rodgers. That non-verbal, I'm a vet, my quarterback's a vet. We've seen it all, done it all. We both read the fine print of defenses. There will be so much non-verbal communication and adjustments. I cannot wait. Green Bay is crying. The entire NFC is crying. This will be a nightmare for defenses.
I was surprised that the Giants made a change neither at general manager or at head coach. Joe and Brian have been there since 2002. The record over that period of time, 9-7-1, 6-11, 3-14, and yet they're sticking both with the GM and with the head coach. Not every team owner would be as patient as it appears John Mara is willing to be with these two men.
For me, at the offensive tackle position, I look around the league and there's so many teams that have a need for that position. And offensive linemen are a premium. Even guards are worth $25 million in the franchise market. So the biggest offseason surprise for me was the Houston Texans, who have pass protection issues. And a franchise quarterback, letting Laramie Tunsil hit the streets and chase conferences. He's now in the nation's capital, blocking for Jaden Daniels. That was the biggest surprise for me. I look at Laramie Tunsil, and I think about a guy who has been phenomenal for the better part of his career, and now he gets to restart with another great quarterback in Washington. Big surprise for me. Obviously, great surprise for Washington, but a real head-scratcher down in Houston.
My biggest surprise was what the Giants did at the quarterback position. I honestly think it was wretched. And the league was talking to these players. Russell Wilson, nobody else wanted him. Pittsburgh said, we're good. We're going to go with Mason Rudolph. We're going to try and re-sign Justin Fields. We benched Justin Fields for Russell Wilson. He visited Cleveland. They said, well, we're going to go with Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco. Jameis Winston? I mean, if I hear one more person say Jameis Winston is fun, freaks. When you throw to the wrong team, that's not fun. Somehow, Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, they got worse at the quarterback position. Color me stunned. Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll, his old coach, wanted to bring in Vegas someone that he had in Seattle. He said, I need Geno Smith, and there was a massive upgrade. Nobody in the league wanted Russ. Nobody wanted Jameis Winston. The Browns had opportunities to either keep Winston or sign Russ. Like, we're good. The Browns didn't want these guys. Giants, they brought them in. Only thing that can follow that segment, Katie and Jeff. Guys, take it away.
Thanks, Adam. Time now for us to go over the tops. We're giving you a little action on draft slots up. I'm up first with Penn State tight end Tyler Warren, and he's a fun one, maybe a comp to Gronk. He lines up everywhere, even as a quarterback a few times. I just think it's so rare for tight ends to go in the top 10. Last one, of course, was Kyle Pitts in 2021. When I look at the top 10 teams, I just see them going elsewhere, so I like this plus 140 and taking the over on him.
Hey, Adam Shine, you want some fun? I got some fun here for you. Armand Membu under pick 6.5. Wait a minute, I thought he was going to the Jets. What's happening here? I thought the Raiders were going to take a running back. Nope. Right now, Ashton Genty favored to go 5 overall, minus 180 to go 5 overall. Membo is the favorite to go 6 at plus 105. You can get better odds going under 6.5 at plus 156. A little mathy math tells me that's the right bet.
Okay, I feel like neither of us paid attention here with the over the top because I'm also taking an under here on Mason Graham, the DT from Michigan. Under 5.5 here. Now, he was the betting favorite to go to Jacksonville. That seems to have changed a little bit. Now it's Ashton Genty. But look, you could bet this multiple ways. If you think Jacksonville is going to get him, you could take him as a top 5 pick. You could try an exact pick at 5 or this under on the 5.5 line. I just think that the under gives you a little bit more ways to win here. I do think that Jacksonville nabs him at number 5.
All right, I can do an over for us here.
All right.
Let's go Jackson Dart. Now, I do expect him to be first-round pick. His line is 25.5. I'm going over on that. It's minus 134, but I'm willing to pay that price. The Rams are at 26. Could they draft a quarterback? Perhaps. I don't think that's necessarily in play, though, because the favorites to draft Jackson Dart, the Giants at plus 160, the Saints at plus 250, the Browns at plus 470. They're all towards the top end of the second round. They all could trade back into the back end of the first round. Detroit at 28, Washington 29, Buffalo 30, Kansas City and Philly to round it out. Trading up into the back end of the first round for a quarterback makes sense because you get that fifth-year option. I think he's a first rounder, but I do think he's over 25.5.
I also like the nickname I've been hearing from him, Darth Vader. He's a very big Star Wars fan, so I do like that. I'm a sucker for a nickname.
Season to forget for Tua and Mike McDaniel. So how do they get back on track, Brock, at number 13?
By addressing the cornerback position, whether you are putting someone opposite Jalen Ramsey or replacing him entirely if they move on from Jalen Ramsey. And I love Will Johnson. His ceiling when healthy is Pat Surtain reincarnated. Yes, there's the foot. Yes, he's not a fast guy. What he does is mirror the wide receiver. And what that means is he's so good at press man. His arms are so long. He's so strong. His lateral quick footwork is so good that the receiver's speed doesn't matter because they can't get around him. You see it right there. No concerns about Will Johnson, and when he is at his best, he will be one of the best corners in the NFL.
Yeah, totally understand that one. Makes a lot of sense. They will be trading Jalen Ramsey. I don't know if it's this weekend or later on. They need somebody to help take some of that $21.1 million salary off their hands. For me, the Indianapolis Colts, look, it's got to be Colston Loveland, the second tight end out of this group if Tyler Warren's off the board. Then the Indianapolis Colts, Chris Ballard absolutely loves getting big, tall guys. Not just big, tall pass catchers. The Indianapolis Colts, year in, year out, have the tallest roster in the entire NFL. And so you get this guy who's 6'5", 245 pounds. Shane Steichen came out and said, hey, obviously we need a pass-catching tight end. And if Shane Steichen is out here giving away secrets, actually something might be up. Because it's hard in a Wednesday press conference to get Shane Steichen to admit that the sky is blue.
Both of these tight end prospects that we're going to see in the first round, Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland, fabulous talents. And we saw last year the impact a rookie tight end can have. Indianapolis, they're trying to make that job a little bit easier for the quarterback. That's a great way to get that done. And at number 15, the Atlanta Falcons are faced with a decision. Quite frankly, I think it's an easy one. Go get the best pass rusher that you can. Mike Green is going to be there. He's going to be the pick. That's a good way to heat up some of those quarterbacks in your division. A lot of production out of this guy, and that's exactly what they need in Atlanta.
Kyle, I agree. That's a terrific choice. Atlanta had the second fewest sacks last year. They need to sack the quarterback. Kyle, you know the man who said the quarterback must go down, and he must go down hard. I love your idea.
I want to circle back to two picks. I love the Loveland fit with Indianapolis. I wonder if they're going to trade up for him. I think they might have to. I wouldn't be surprised if both tight ends ended up going in the top 10. And yes, for Atlanta, we're live. This is not from last year. Pass rush, pass rush, pass rush. I mean, this has got to be the year. And Kyle named a great name there. I mean, you know, you look at the board, you look at need, it makes too much sense for Terry Fontenot and the Atlanta Falcons. New faces in the desert this season: Josh Sweats, Delvin Tomlinson, Calais Campbell going back to Arizona. Friend of the show, love Calais Campbell. Telling you, I think Jonathan Gannon and his squad could be a sleeper team this year. Trey McBride got paid, worth every single penny. Brock, where are the Cardinals going in 16?
I stick with defense, and let me mention, they've killed it so far. Those names you just mentioned, also the return of B.J. Ojulari, who got hurt during training camp last year. But I want to add to that linebacker room with Carson Schlesinger. And yes, he may not be linebacker one for most people, but all it takes is one. And we mentioned earlier with Jack Campbell in Detroit, everyone knew Jack Campbell was good. Detroit said, that's our guy. I don't care where you have him ranked. And that's the situation I see here. You could not run an offensive play against UCLA without Carson there. Run, pass, play action, it didn't matter. He is a football player, like Mike and Kyle have been saying through and through. And Nick Rallis, the defensive coordinator for Arizona, would make work out of Carson Schlesinger. And Arizona is in a really good spot. I'm excited about them this year.
Yeah, I had a couple things here about Schlesinger. He was a former walk-on. Only 1 year as a starter, and his tape as a first-year starter was electric. And I'll say this. There's this linebacker class, there's two guys. It's Jahad Campbell from Alabama, it's Carson Schlesinger. After that, there may not be a day one starter in the rest of the linebacker class. So if you want one, you might have to go get him early.
Mike, how about Cincinnati at 17?
Cincinnati at 17, I love the fit of Michael Williams, the Georgia edge defender going there, because Cincinnati's got a type. In the Duke Tobin era, since he's been the exec there, they draft big, long, and strong. You won't find a guy that has a better combination of that in this draft class than Michael Williams, the Georgia edge defender. And it's crazy how strong he is for a guy who's not even going to be able to celebrate with a drink on draft night. He's still 20 years old. And this guy's got almost 35-inch arms. He played the Trayvon Walker role in that defense, so he doesn't have a lot of pass rushing production, but he is a hard edge setter there on the end.
JJ, I'm always fascinated by John Schneider on draft night. He could do anything. That's the precedent. What are you thinking?
Oh, yeah, so I'm going to be wrong here. But Ted McMillan, because they need a wide receiver, because, yes, they have Jackson Smith and Jigba, and yes, they signed Cooper Kupp to a 3-year, really 1-year deal over there. But after getting rid of DK Metcalf, let's get some size back over there, right? Let's go ahead and get this guy, what is he, 6'4", 6'5"? Yep. At least, former volleyball player. Look, when he's on the field, there's no question, there's no doubt. There are questions, however, about body language, about his love of the game. We've heard that over and over throughout this pre-draft process. So the Seattle Seahawks are certainly going to have to get that figured out. But keep him over there on the left coast and taking him to the Seattle Seahawks.
Kyle, the Bucs at 19?
Bucs at 19, they're probably going to look to bolster that defense, second level of the defense, with a guy that you just mentioned, Jahad Campbell, out of the University of Alabama. When I think about Jahad Campbell, I think about a guy who has the unique opportunity to learn behind one of the most tenured veterans at the linebacker position in the National Football League in Levante David. Get to share that defensive room with him, and I think it's a need that they will fill with Jahad Campbell.
I've got the Broncos at 20. Omarion Hampton is going to be my selection.
Yeah.
And Brock referenced this before, and I just think he's got Alvin Kamara traits and Sean Payton. And listen, I think Hampton's going to be a great pro. And I think he is clearly in a uber-talented running back class. I think he is clearly the second best running back. And again, I think we're going to see a record of running backs selected and the most ever in the top 100 picks. Like, I think there are some great day 2 and even day 3 running backs who are going to get a bulk of carries for your favorite team, help your fantasy team. But I think Denver's looking at running back in round number 1. It's all about helping out Bo Nix. I think Hampton is the play. The drama in the Steel City. Russell Wilson is a Giant, Justin Fields is a Jet. So is Pittsburgh all in on landing a franchise quarterback in the first round of the draft, Brock?
Aaron Rodgers has not signed on that dotted line, so I feel that you have to be. And I feel that Jackson Dart will be there to fill those shoes. So let's start with the positives. He's athletic, and any offensive coordinator is going to be excited about an athletic quarterback, and he'll be surrounded by some great wide receivers. That's the positive. Unfortunately, the hill he has to climb is coming out of a Lane Kiffin offense, and the simplest way to explain it is Lane Kiffin's offense is a video game offense. Not a lot of it can be directly applied to an NFL system. And then those wide receivers and those personalities and managing all of that as the face of the franchise, and the franchise that historically hasn't done a great job of managing personalities. It's an uphill climb. It would be a tough task, but they have to take a quarterback, and I see it being Jackson Dart.
It does sort of make sense for them to take a quarterback somewhere, right? They pick at 21, then they pick again at 83. They don't have that second-round pick. So I understand taking a quarterback there. Depends on who it's going to be. One interesting thing, we heard from Mike Tomlin earlier this week in his pre-draft press conference. Mike Tomlin, not known for giving away much at press conferences, right? How much, Adam, did he talk up Shedeur Sanders?
Nonstop.
Nonstop, in a way that Mike Tomlin in 2 decades has never done for any player that the team has or has not drafted ahead of time. And it was just curious to me. There was a reason for that. And I don't know what the reason exactly was, but I do not believe the reason was that's because they're about to draft him at 21. He's preparing everyone for it. I don't think at all that that is the reason. One interesting thing, though, that I did hear, because it's draft season and you hear crazy rumors, somebody said, actually, I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to wait till 2026 to draft a quarterback so that they can do it in Pittsburgh at the draft.
Huh. Wow.
I want you all to know the stuff that I hear over texts and phone calls that, like, I'm not actually legitimately reporting that. I'm just going to say it as a joke on live television.
Let's be honest, they need a quarterback. Whether it's in the first round or it's Aaron Rodgers, whatever you have to do to entice him to get off his couch, they got to get it done. And if it's not Aaron Rodgers, it's either going to be Shedeur Sanders or it's going to be Jackson Dart or whoever else you deem to be the guy. But when you talk about those personalities, I think it could be a real positive for a young quarterback to come in and with the daunting task of learning an NFL offense and metamorphosizing into an NFL quarterback, not a college quarterback. And there is a difference. It helps a whole lot having George Pickens and DK Metcalf out there. And the confidence that must instill in a young quarterback, I would imagine it's a big thing. So you get a guy like Jackson Dart, say, cut it loose, young man. We're probably not going to win the Super Bowl, but let's get really good this year. Let's figure out some chemistry on the offensive side of the ball.
Well, something else that Pittsburgh needs is help against the running game. Last year in the wild card game, playing Baltimore, Pittsburgh gave up this many yards. 299 rushing yards. For those doing math at home, I'll help. That's 1 yard less than 300 rushing yards. They've got to find a way to stop the run. And in that regard, Cam Hayward is 35, so that's something else to factor into the decision in this pick.
Great point.
If the season started today, it doesn't. Mason Rudolph is the quarterback.
Yep.
They don't have a second-round pick. I think Pittsburgh absolutely has to take a quarterback at 21. To your brilliant point, JJ, on Tomlin, on Shedeur, it means something. It's either the ultimate smokescreen or it's the ultimate prep for guys. We're drafting Shedeur Sanders, and everyone needs to understand that. Which leads me to Aaron Rodgers. And I still believe Aaron Rodgers, based upon what I saw in the final 5 weeks of the season, has a lot of gas left in the tank. Let me just say that for the record. And everyone knows how much I like Aaron Rodgers as a player. I think it's a terrible fit in Pittsburgh. I don't think he wants to be there. I don't think for this team, this group of receivers, I think Pickens would drive him bonkers. The interview he did on Pat McAfee's show, to me, it was crystal clear. He doesn't want to sign a contract there. He's willing to sign for 1 year, $10 million. I'm sure they'd offer him that. JJ, what are you hearing on Rodgers? To me, it was crystal clear that he doesn't want to be in Pittsburgh. And frankly, I don't think Pittsburgh should want Aaron Rodgers.
It's hard for me to disagree with either one of those opinions, Adam. It's hard to come away from that appearance on the Pat McAfee show and think that Aaron Rodgers absolutely wants to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because if you did, there's clearly a hole for you. There's clearly, you say you had great meetings here. It makes sense for you because you don't want your career to end on this note. And there's no other obvious place for him to go. Like, it's Pittsburgh, or right now it's looking like retirement. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense. I thought that he would have already signed with Pittsburgh by now. And so now I have to use my own logic. Why is that? And he says there are some personal issues with people who are very close to him in his life. We're not going to dive into that or even kind of consider what that could be, but clearly he meant it. And so maybe he really is. Maybe we should take him at his word. I don't think that Pittsburgh should be waiting around for him.
Aaron Rodgers would change things big time in Pittsburgh, man.
How long do you wait?
Take a look at that talent. Well, I mean, I can't put myself in the mind of Aaron Rodgers. That's a scary place to even imagine.
But you're a teammate of his, and you guys are starting OTAs and minicamp, Kyle. You've been there. Hey, we're trying to win this championship.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to find the other 52 guys that are going to be on the active roster. I'm going to be like, let's send a group DM to Aaron Rodgers, and we can send him a video and be like, come on out here, because obviously the answer's not in the building right now. So whether it's reaching for a quarterback at 21 that isn't necessarily a true round one level quarterback, or getting Aaron Rodgers, the answer to me is clear. You need a quarterback.
I'm trying to think of a team, not just in the NFL, just in any sport that has a wider possibility of how good things can be versus how bad things can be. It's impossible to imagine how awful and how terrible and how ugly things can be in Pittsburgh, but maybe it clicks. And maybe the Aaron Rodgers that we saw the last month and a half of the season is the Aaron Rodgers there, and George Pickens grows up and Jaylen Warren goes off now that he's the future back. Maybe. We won't know until we know, but I'm just over here fantasizing about the barrier over here and the barrier way over there and all that stuff that can happen.
For all we said about Aaron Rodgers last year, 28 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. That's a darn good ratio for any quarterback. That makes him the 7th most touchdown scoring quarterback in the NFL last year. He's still a good quarterback.
As someone who spent her career in the National Football League with an organization that didn't always demonstrate tremendous equanimity or patience when it came to certain issues, I'm going to take this moment to note that I'm really impressed with the way the Steelers have dealt with the uncertainty surrounding Aaron's lack of a decision, if you will. They've really displayed tremendous patience and tremendous restraint. Again, we didn't always do that. And certainly I didn't do that when we played in Pittsburgh and Richard Seymour was ejected from the game. I went absolutely ham. So hats off to Pittsburgh for displaying a restraint and a calm that not only didn't our organization always demonstrate, but I didn't demonstrate on that game day in Pittsburgh.
I want to take a look at the top 10 picks for tomorrow night with our draft experts, Jeff and Mike. Jeffrey, you're up first. How do you see the top 10 going?
Let's hope you guys aren't laughing after I put these on the board here. Let's start at number 1. This one's easy. We know the pick. It's Cam Ward to the Titans. Obvious here. And in fact, Mike, I think we're going to be fairly chalk on the first 4 picks. So at number 2, Travis Hunter to the Browns. Easy pick for me there. Abdul Carter, we talked about this earlier in the show. I like him going to the Giants at number 3. At number 4, Will Campbell, offensive tackle, LSU. Here's where things get interesting, boys. Ashton Genty, number 5 overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I told you earlier in the show, if you've been watching, Armand Membu going to the Raiders at 6. At 7, give me the big body tight end out of Penn State, Tyler Warren to the Jets. At 8, Jalen Walker, linebacker, Georgia. At 9, pivotal pick here, inflection point, Mykel Williams to the Saints. And finally, he fell, I don't know how, Mason Graham to the Bears at 10.
Wow. And you know what? I'm looking at Tyler Warren at 7, and I'm thinking, well, Justin Fields, he's going to have to find a way to get him the ball, or there's going to be a real waste in ability there. But I love that list. The Genty pick at 5 is wild. Liam Cohen's success with the running back position in Tampa Bay leads me to believe that that's a home run as well.
Jacksonville has a 2-headed monster. Who's to say they can't have a 3-headed monster? That blows me away. And obviously, the Jets need more than just offensive line. They need weapons. They need everything. So there's no bad pick there, but Tyler Warren still shocking. Wherever he goes, he's going to ball out, though.
I love Warren at 7. I think that's the fit for the Jets. We talked about that earlier. I love Genty. And even you say, Brock, and you're right on depth chart, 2-headed monster, 3-headed monster. Those other monsters were with the old regime. I mean, ETN was an Urban Meyer guy. That's an urban legend at this stage. Wow. So, yeah, you draft Genty.
Tony Baselli blocked for him.
Yeah. Fred Taylor and David Garrard say hello. John Henderson once slapped him in the
Naming
face.
dudes.
Naming dudes.
Mike, give us a top 10.
We're going to have a lot of crossover here. Same 1 through 4. Cam Ward going to the Titans, Travis Hunter going to the Browns, Abdul Carter going to the Giants, and then Will Campbell going number 4 to the Patriots. But here's where it gets interesting. If anyone tells you they know what's going to happen 5 through 10, they're lying to you. I'm going to go the same guy you had, but a different team. Ashton Genty to the Dallas Cowboys.
Whoa, I see you.
This is how you sell jerseys, folks. Jerry Jones, businessman, not a guy in charge of a football team. At number 6, we're going to go Armand Membu, the Missouri offensive tackle, same as you had there, Jeff. This is how you run the rock. You build it up front first. You can get that running back later. At number 7, we're going to go Mason Graham. Give me that 2-headed monster of Quinnen Williams, Mason Graham. That's how you stop the Josh Allens of the world, the Drake Mays of the world in that division. At number 8, Jalen Walker, the best 3-4 outside linebacker in the class, goes to a team that has a drastic need at 3-4 outside linebacker. And then number 9, I think the Saints go offensive line here. Kelvin Banks, another offensive tackle. I think those tackles come off the board quickly. And with the Saints, I think they're going to move Trevor Penning, the right tackle, inside, slot Kelvin Banks on the right side. That's the best run blocking offensive line, or one of, in the NFL. And then give me Tyler Warren, the Penn State tight end, the Chicago Bears.
Let's go.
Wow. Moving up from 12, the Dallas Cowboys, all the way up to 5, an incredible amount of draft capital that would have to be used in order to do that. But of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they don't need anything, so they'll just go back to 12. Not sure about that one, Mike. But no, I kid, of course, with the new guy. But look, how about this? Mason Graham to the Jets. Everyone is saying that they are going to go help Justin Fields. And I believe that it was Amy earlier who talked about how great of a friend the defense can be to the quarterback.
Well, both Mike and Jeff have Ashton Genty going at 5, and I'm just going to say you're killing me, Smalls, because I would really love to see him be available at number 6. That said, I'm never going to ever argue with taking a very, very strong offensive tackle. The offensive and defensive lines are where most games are won or lost.
Mike, I'm obsessed with this. I love Dallas trading up. I think there are 3 teams that could trade up for Genty. Raiders, a spot or 2, just to make sure they get him. The Bears, Ben Johnson makes all the sense in the world. And Dallas. How does Jerry Jones shut everyone up? This is the move. Sells jerseys. And by the way, it's not just marketing. I mean, Genti in that offense, I mean, he'd run for 1,700 yards.
I love that.
He'd be amazing.
Adam is like, oh, yeah, it's great for marketing. Adam, it's great for your radio show.
That's right. It's a win for me. Come on. Who do I root for? This guy. Harbaugh and Herbert had a very successful first season together, but that playoff loss to the Texans in the wild card round, it stings. Kyle, where are they going to go at 22?
I think they have to go with a receiver. And at Ohio State, there's a gentleman named Emeka Egbuka who is as polished as they come, NFL ready as they come. And I heard somebody, I forget who it was, maybe Jeff, comparing him to a guy like Jackson Smith and Jigba. You can put him anywhere. He can run any of the route tree, and he will be an immediate benefit to that offense. And we just saw Ladd McConkey on the screen, co-offensive rookie of the year, fantastic rookie campaign. And for Justin Herbert, why not more is better? Just put another option out there, let him sling the ball around. I know that Jim Harbaugh's offense was run first at the beginning of the year. And as the season went on, Justin Herbert, they kind of opened up the floodgates in terms of the passing game. I look for that to be the theme moving forward this coming season.
Egbuka, a hell of a receiver. I'm hoping Green Bay stays away from receivers because if we're talking true number ones, Travis Hunter and T-Mac are it, and they're going to be gone. So let the streak continue. Do not draft a wide receiver. Go with a cornerback. How about if Jahdae Barron is still available?
Okay.
And Jair Alexander, similar to the Miami situation, how long will he be on this team? I don't know, but I know that Jahdae Barron is a baller, specifically at the slot corner position. He just never looks out of place. Run play, blitz, dropping back in coverage, man-to-man, he just does everything. True ball hawk, and in that NFC North, you need DBs. I would love to see Jahdae Barron.
And his tape kind of reminds me of Jair Alexander's coming out of Louisville, similar players. So if Jair, if he's off the roster, great, you have another one. But if he's on the roster, maybe two. Two's better than one. And you're stealing him away from a Minnesota Vikings team who could really use a corner. So with him off the board, I like Nick Emanwari, the South Carolina safety for this Minnesota Vikings football team. He is a physical specimen. 6'3", 220 pounds. He ran a 4.38 with a 43-inch vertical and did 20 reps on the bench. He is a guy that kind of bridges the gap between safety and linebacker, and we know that Brian Flores defense. He loves guys where you don't know where they're going to line up, where you don't know what they're going to do, and on any given play, he can rush the passer like a linebacker. He can drop into coverage like a deep safety, elite talent.
I really, really like that pick. I actually, in my mock draft, had the Chicago Bears trading back up into the first with the Minnesota Vikings to get the safety. You know, the Vikings only have 4 picks total, so I'd be surprised if they actually pick there, but in this world, we forced you to pick right there, Mike. Meanwhile, for the Houston Texans, for me, it's one of my favorite names in this entire draft. Gray Zabel, the North Dakota State product. Some people have him as a center. Some people have him as a guard. Let's just call him an interior offensive lineman. This is around the time most drafts that a center gets selected. And look, Houston needs offensive linemen. Kyle, you were talking earlier about why would you trade away Laramie Tunsil? They are preparing for an entirely new offensive line. They know that they're going to draft 2, maybe even 3 offensive linemen in this draft. Go ahead and get one who can play multiple positions in Mr. Zabel.
So I'm going to go and break down the Rams here, and I'm going to give you 3 concepts. Number 1, best corner on the board. I think they clearly need a corner. And I look at the Rams as a team that made the best move of the offseason with Devontae Adams, had an unbelievable regular season, postseason. I think they're close to a Super Bowl, which factors in here. I also think they are a candidate to trade up for one of the tight ends. It's pretty crystal clear they wanted Brock Bowers last year, tried to do it. Worked out. They got Versa and obviously Rookie of the Year. But I would not be surprised to see Les Snead and Sean McVay get aggressive. I also could see quarterback. I think that's lower on the list. But if their top guys are gone and they're in love with either Dart or Sanders or Shuck or someone else, I think they can absolutely go quarterback at some point, first or second or third round. Kyle, Ravens.
Let's face it. It feels like all the decisions Les Snead, Sean McVay make are the right decisions. So whatever they do deem is the right one. I trust my gut on that one. And at 27, I've got the Baltimore Ravens. And then in the AFC, you're dealing with some real fire-breathing dragons at the quarterback position. You need to have guys on the second and third level of the defense who can cause chaos, confuse these quarterbacks who seemingly know everything, see things before they happen. Go get Malachi Starks. Plug him right in there into that defense, and you've got that chaos right there coming out in the first round.
Malachi Starks immediately in contention for best athlete in the NFL. Triple option quarterback in high school, one of the fastest guys in track. Malachi Starks is a baller. Going on to Detroit, first and foremost, I'm showing my DBs love. Kirby Joseph just signed a 4-year, $86 million extension. And if you thought I was going to mention an edge player before I gave a safety some love, congratulations to Kirby Joseph and well-deserved. Now to that edge, Nick Scorton. First he tore up the Big Ten at Purdue, then he tore up the SEC at A&M. And if he had a shred of speed, he would have been even better. But what he lacks in speed, he makes up for with power and relentlessness. He will track down plays from behind, not due to speed, just due to effort. And if that doesn't sound like a Detroit Lion to you, I don't know what does.
And Nick Scorton, interesting fact, he's the second youngest player in the entire draft class, another 20-year-old, and a power end to be a complement to Aiden Hutchinson's speed rusher. Because I was looking end as well for the Washington Commanders at 29. So I'm going to go Donovan Ezaraku here, the Boston College defensive end. A little leaner, a little lighter, 248 pounds, but this guy knows how to rush the passer. His pass rushing move is about as good as it gets in this draft class. 60 pressures a year ago. He has a full bag, a full complement of moves to get around offensive tackles, and he's bendy. He has that burst and bend to the edge. You see it right there. That's perfect for this Dan Quinn coach defense.
He's also done an incredible job in the pre-draft process. Teams absolutely love him. He shot up the boards because of how he has conducted himself through this process. The Buffalo Bills on the clock right now. Let's go with the corner. Let's go with Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky. Look, I think the Bills could obviously trade back right here. But when you have someone like Hairston, yeah, he's a tick below Will Johnson, a tick below Jahdae Barron, but he's also a tick above the next crop of corners. Yes, they just signed Trey White to that one-year deal, but that's let's just hope and pray that we get a semblance of the old Trey White back in Buffalo. You need to go ahead and get someone opposite Christian Benford. That's going to be the guy in Hairston.
Scrappy. Harrison is scrappy.
We're going to head back out to Green Bay one final time and check in with Didi Kukabala as we start to wind down our 2025 Tops Draft Preview Show. We welcome back into Didi Kukabala one final time, and Didi has props.
I do, in fact, but you're sort of stealing my thunder here. When the NFL started moving the draft around, Adam, the idea was to get these other NFL cities to show off a piece of themselves. So as you're all talking about drafts, back here, the people of Green Bay are enjoying beautiful Green Bay. This entire festival is an ode to what makes Wisconsin special, and what makes Wisconsin special besides cheese, but beer. 9 local breweries have come together to brew this one special original recipe, and I'm told you can only buy it this weekend. I'll let you know after the show how this recipe actually came out.
Time now for a little elevator pitch. We're pitching you on which stars of the 2025 draft class will be coming home with some hardware at the end of their rookie seasons. And I am starting with Cam Ward as the Offensive Rookie of the Year. He has the second shortest odds. I love when those elevator doors open. But look, of the last 21 Offensive Rookies of the Year, 18 of them were drafted in the first round. 11 of them were quarterbacks. 4 of them were the #1 overall. And Jeff, let's face it, he's no stranger to winning awards, right? He was a Heisman Trophy finalist. He was the Offensive Player of the Year, the ACC Player of the Year. The list goes on, and this is a Titans team who only had 3 wins. He gets them above 500. I like him.
I like that as well, but I will take the favorite if you're going to give him to me. I'll take Ashton Gentil. He's currently plus 250 to win this award. This is an award that once was dominated by running backs. 29 times from 1967 until 2004, running backs won this award. Of course, in 2004, Ben Roethlisberger won it, and that's when this era of quarterbacks began. Since then, only 6 times, but one of whom I mentioned earlier in the show, Ashton Gentil. I said the last time we saw a guy like this coming in for fantasy, Saquon Barkley, and he won the award in 2018. Alvin Kamara the year before that. I think this is a no-brainer for me. He's going to hit the ground running immediately and be a big star in this league.
All right, so I see your shortest odds, and I'm going to raise you for Defensive Player of the Year. I'm going with Abdul Carter here. I think he's probably the best prospect overall in this year's draft. He's just a generational pass rusher. He's coming off the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. And I do think that this year's draft class, Jeff, and you've talked about it all show, is really deep with talent. But if he can stay healthy for 17 weeks, he gets somewhere in the range of like 8 or 9 sacks, which I know seems like a lot. I really like him as the favorite.
Yeah, there's a lot of edge talent in this class, but I'm going to off-ball linebacker here with Jalen Walker, or is he? He's kind of a hybrid, right? Over the last 2 seasons, 11.5 sacks at Georgia. And, you know, we saw a player kind of like him, maybe a little bit bigger, in Micah Parsons win this. Oh, I said it. Win this award himself. Now, again, a little bit small for the edge, but he can do a lot of dynamic stuff. So if there is a guy to unseat Carter, it's Walker.
JJ, they are on the clock at pick 31.
I mean, always protect Patrick Mahomes. Always, right? Because it has been proven time and again that they will find a cast of characters for him to throw the football to. They can get it out in veteran free agency. But I'm going with Donovan Jackson here. And I think in our mock, we probably haven't gone with Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. Donovan Jackson was a guard for Ohio State. Then Josh Simmons tore his patellar tendon in his knee. Then he kicked out to tackle. And he played both positions really well. So I love the versatility that he would be able to offer this Kansas City Chiefs group, whether you want to start him out at guard and move him to tackle or vice versa, or, you know, somebody goes down. Joe Thuney, obviously, just went to the Chicago Bears. You have a hole there. Find some versatility. I'm going with Donovan Jackson here.
Best versatility O-lineman available. And when he had the opportunity to go out there on the island at tackle, he was dominant. Granted, it wasn't a full season's work at tackle. Andy Heck, I'm sure, saw just enough. And you mentioned Josh Simmons as potential, but that patellar injury is really, really rough for an O-lineman. I think he's going to be fine, but Donovan Jackson would be a great pick for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs.
JJ, your point about protecting Patrick Mahomes is so important, so smart. And yet they traded Joe Thuney. And as we all noted last year when we were on this show, Kansas City struggled a lot on the offensive line. And every time they struggled, well, we'll move Joe there. Well, we'll move Joe there. And he helped them in many spots, and yet they traded him. So they've got to address that for the reason you noted, JJ.
Would love Donovan Jackson. Wouldn't be mad at a defensive lineman either. Put someone in there like Kenneth Grant next to Chris Jones and Karlaftis.
Well, they lost Turk Wharton to Carolina.
And they lost Turk Wharton. So it's a situation where, hey, let's get a 340-pound run stopper who needs to develop as a pass rusher, but can maybe alleviate some of the stress on the other guys. But in all likelihood, it's the Kansas City Chiefs, so someone's going to fall. And then at the end of the weekend, we're going to say, how did the league let the Chiefs get that guy once again? But for now, Donovan Jackson, I love it.
So I think drafting an offensive lineman makes sense. I think a defensive lineman makes sense. I think this is also a potential place where Kansas City trades out. Yep. There's a quarterback there. Someone moves up to ensure they get their guy. Just throw it to the room for a second. Running back. That's one position where I think they need to consider one of the Ohio State backs. At some point in this draft, I think they're going to add a running back. Curious to see what they think of the Ohio State backs at the end of the first round. Jalen Hurts got a Super Bowl ring and a wedding ring. Mazel tov, Jalen. Hey. Announced this week he married his longtime girlfriend, Brie Burrows. How about that? So, Kyle, with that as a backdrop, what do Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni do with the final pick of the first round?
Well, you know what? So much talent left the building in Philadelphia, but so much talent remains. And they're obviously spoiled on the offensive side of the ball. So I'm going to cut that thing in half. We're going to go defense. And I'm going to go with James Pierce, the edge rusher out of Tennessee, a volunteer. And I think he fits the mold of what they're trying to get accomplished in Philadelphia. Do-it-all type guy, long, rangy. I was there when Leonard Floyd, the edge rusher, came into the National Football League. He could run sideline to sideline with tight ends. He could rush the passer. He played the run with tremendous strength with his length. And I see James Pierce having that similar skill set in Philadelphia. And trust me, Vic Fangio will find a way to make him dangerous.
Not mad at the James Pierce pick at all. I would like to see safety here. I feel safety is one of the deeper classes. And for a team that doesn't really need anything, let's just strengthen our strengths with that secondary that was first in the NFL. Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State, coming out of a Tom Allen system. Actually, it doesn't matter what system he played. He played at Penn State, and he plays safety, so he's good. Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame, as black and white a safety as it gets. He can be in the middle of the field, or he can come downhill and hit you hard. Wouldn't mind Vic Fangio getting a tool back there as well. But either way, Kyle, we agree. I see it being defensive.
Yeah, they traded away C.J. Gardner-Johnson, right? And they badly need someone opposite Reed Blankenship. So a safety. If somehow Malachi Starks falls there, if Nicky Manwari falls there, I think that you rush up. You're right, but I mean, it's Howie Roseman, and he loves to make a deal. So he could trade up and go get one of those guys. He could trade back and just say, hey, guys, let's just let the draft come to us on day 2. I don't know that Howie has ever passed up an edge rusher. Lane Johnson's getting up there in age, and so if you don't need much, go ahead and stock the cupboard for later.
Brock and JJ, you both just mentioned that that C.J. Gardner-Johnson is not there anymore, the safety. Well, putting aside football for a minute, I don't know that that's good juju. 2020, Philadelphia made the Super Bowl. C.J. Gardner-Johnson was on the roster. 2024, they won the Super Bowl. C.J. Gardner-Johnson was on the roster. I'm not sure that's good juju that he's gone.
JJ, what did you say was the technical name of the NFL draft when we started the show?
It is the annual player selection meeting.
You know, it's also referred to as the Howie Roseman Invitational. Spoiler alerts. No matter what happens with the Eagles in the draft, it's phenomenal.
Welcome back. Time now for a little rookie radar. We've already heard Jeff's mock top 10, but we wanted to rip through the rest of the first round. Jeff, who are you dialed in with through pick 16?
Yes, and I swear this is my final mock draft of 2025. So let's go first and foremost. Let's focus in on some skill position players, right? Tetaroa McMillan going 12 to the Dallas Cowboys. Yes, CeeDee Lamb is there. He's going to continue to be the target monster, but McMillan can play above the rim, gives you that big body presence, and could be a 1A in that offense right from the jump. Another wide receiver down here at 15, the speed of Matthew Golden. A little bit tough to predict where he's going to go. His pick line is 16.5 right now, so I'm going just under there to complement Marvin Harrison Jr. in that offense. And then also, how about this? Colston Loveland, one of my favorite prospects in the entire class. However, here's the problem. If he goes to the Colts, who is his quarterback? Right now, the Colts might have 2 quarterbacks, which, as the old saying goes, you don't have a quarterback. So who knows right there? But at least from a skill set standpoint, I really love him.
Okay, I really like this Kelvin Banks that you have for the 49ers as well. We know that Trent Williams isn't getting any younger. No more Aaron Banks. Seems like that would solve a short-term and a long-term problem for my 49ers. Let's now take a look at 17 through 24.
Let's do it. All right, here we go. So, there it is, number 20. You see that in orange right there? Make this happen. Football gods make Omarion Hampton go to the Denver Broncos. The room is completely empty. There's opportunity there. The team is ascending. They're buying into what Sean Payton is doing. And of course, Bo Nix, you got yourself a quarterback. This would be a dream landing spot for me for fantasy purposes, and I'm selfish. I want him to go there. But I also have to point out number 21. Oh, Shedeur Sanders. I am not confident in this pick, but the Steelers are currently favored to take him. They don't have a current quarterback right now. Mason Rudolph, more of a backup type. I think we all know that. But this would be a decent landing spot for Shedeur. Obviously, you have DK Metcalf and George Pickens, at least for now. There are weapons in that offense, and he could be the point guard who could deliver the football to those guys. So not a terrible landing spot if he does go to the Steelers.
Okay, I like those. I also like Kenneth Grant up here at the top. That was the Achilles heel, right, for the Cincinnati Bengals. They really need a good pass rush. But I have also heard that maybe Jim Harbaugh wants him back in LA with their time at Michigan. Okay, let's just go with the rest of the round one.
Yeah, let's see it. Let's round this bad boy out. And maybe there's a surprise here.
Oh.
And there it is, number 28. Let me do 26 first, though. Cooper Kupp is out for the Rams. There's opportunity there. Yes, they brought in Devontae Adams, but he's very much hitting into the 18th green of his career on the back nine for sure. So he's not going to be there forever. You have Emeka Egbuka step in, be in that Cooper Kupp role. Just like Jackson Smith and Jigba, maybe year one might not be good, but there's room to grow there. I like that landing spot. But how about this? The Giants come up, and guess what? It won't take a lot for them to do so. We've heard Brian Daboll loves himself some Jackson Dart. And maybe, just maybe, this happens. Now, for Dart, it would be an interesting landing spot where he wouldn't necessarily play from the jump, but we might get that old Russell Wilson's our starter until he isn't. And then you have Malik Neighbors, you have some weapons in that offense and room to grow. This actually would be a pretty interesting spot for him that would help his long-term fantasy value.
Nothing escapes your radar, Jeff. I really like this. This was a fun read.
Ah, yes. Off the tabs of our heads. Time to put the finishing touches on the Top Draft Preview Show. We do with one of our all-time favorite segments. Off the tops of our heads. I give you a sentence. You fill in the blank. First word that pops in your head. You got it, Mike Renner?
One word.
One word, Mike Renner.
One word, all right. We'll see.
Don't cheat, Mike Renner.
You can hyphen if you
Having the draft in Green Bay is... having the draft in Green Bay is JJ.
It's crowded. I've been to Green Bay a couple times. I don't know where all these people are staying.
Amy.
It's groovy.
It's history. All these new players coming into the National Football League, looking back on the legends in Titletown. Green Bay's an amazing place, and this is coming from a Bear.
It's electric. My family lives up in Green Bay. They're charging $150 to park in their front yard.
That's amazing.
Gotta love price gouging. That's awesome.
They're charging $200 at the Chuck E. Cheese. Crazy.
Cam Ward's rookie season will be. Cam Ward's rookie season will be. Brock.
It will be accurate. How many games they're going to win, how many awards he may win, I don't know. But he will deliver the ball on time in a fairly quarterback-friendly system.
How long?
They're going to say, whoa, because they haven't seen quarterback play like that in Tennessee in quite some time.
Interesting.
I actually think it's going to be forgettable because the Tennessee Titans, didn't they announce that they're not wearing the Houston Oilers throwbacks this year?
Good.
And they always look better when they wear them, so.
By the way, that's a step in the right direction. I'm glad they're not doing it. They're not the Houston Oilers. They're not. Mike.
Up and down. I think it could be a lot like Caleb Williams' rookie season where you see the flashes, but they just don't have the talent around him right now to make some noise.
Amy.
I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be fun in particular for fans of the team. I think it's terrific that Callahan's dad is still with the team. He's going to help him a lot.
There will be blank trades in the first round. Give me a number, give me a word. Kyle?
4 trades. I talked about earlier that it's a seller's market. I fully anticipate some of these teams that don't need an immediate something to go back and get more in the middle. It's a heavy draft all the way through.
Amy.
3. It just popped to mind. I've been telling my husband for decades that I'm psychic. It's going to be 3.
All right, write it down. JJ.
I think there's going to be a lot. I think a third of the draft will get traded.
That's a huge number.
And here's the thing. We were so confident about our top 4, and after that, no confidence, really. I think that people are going to trade up and down just a little bit to make sure they get their guy.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the positional runs is where you're going to see someone go up, go down, and a lot of analytically driven GMs now, they're going to be moving picks to get back and get more in a trade down draft.
I'm going to be honest, and me and Mike were talking about this earlier. I've never been more excited for day 2 of a draft. There are so many guys who may not change the franchise day 1, but will impact the franchise. I can't wait to see where they land.
I'm very interested in day 2 from a running back, receiver, and quarterback perspective. I think it's going to be awesome. Blank will be the biggest surprise tomorrow night. Blank will be the biggest surprise tomorrow night. Kyle.
Ashton Genty, where he ends up. I think a lot more teams are willing to give up a lot to get Ashton Genty than we let on in the conversations we've had.
How about Jalen Milroe? Oh,
It is.
Then, Mike, because you're the new guy here, take it away.
Yeah, I think there's a very real chance that someone buys into the upside because that's what you're chasing at quarterback. And the guy has arm talent, the guy has running ability. Someone could just see, the next Jalen Hurts, but with a higher end rushing ability. It could be a first round.
Do you agree with that, JJ?
I understand the whole traits thing, and also if we all agree this is a bad quarterback draft, we all agree that you are drafting a quarterback of the future and he's going to sit this year anyway, then why don't you go ahead and get the guy who has the highest ceiling of them all?
Amy.
The biggest surprise will be if there's no trades. We all just indicated we think there'll be a fair number of trades. JJ had it at 12, so if there's no trades, to me, that's the biggest surprise.
Blank will be the new head coach that's going to have the most success this season.
Ooh.
Blank will be the new head coach that will have the most success this season. Kyle does not hesitate.
I don't have to really say anything. I got Ben, the name Ben
So
on
it could be like Michael in Chicago, just one
Ben
name.
Johnson, baby.
That's right.
Ben Johnson, I'm with Kyle.
Mike Vrabel, Pats, that defense is the real deal with all the additions.
Amy.
Cousin Paul, for you, Aaron Glenn.
I'll tell you, the Pete Carroll stamp is going to be great, too.
Yeah,
All of a sudden, that's going to turn. I'm telling you, the Raiders,
yeah, that's
don't
the
sleep
answer.
on the Raiders. You're not screaming playoffs. They're going to be a respectable organization and a tough out game to game. I think that Geno Smith was a great pickup. Tom Brady, Spike Tech, the whole thing. All right, you know what? It's going to do it for us.